if leaders are responsible for bringing the people back to what matters, if leaders are responsible for bringing the people back to what matters, if leaders are responsible for bringing people back to what matters, what happens when the leader stops paying attention? Leaders are responsible for bringing people back, per Heraclitus. Leaders are responsible. Their ability to respond models the behaviors that signify what's important. It can be seen, spoken. The congruence of their thoughts and their words and their deeds is reflected in their behavior. So it's signaled explicitly through proximity, through presence. Ritual holds that together. So if leaders are responsible for bringing people back to what matters, because where are they bringing them back? They're bringing them back to what must be done in the face of uncertainty. Why do we hear these adages or we're confronted with these themes? The leadership matters when times are tough. It's when the times are tough that the leader arises. Well, because in the times are tough, when there's adversity, there's uncertainty, there's paralysis through analysis, there's the anxiety goes up. The anxiety goes up, but it's like around and outside of. It's like a giant wave going up around the group and then coming and crashing down on the group. The anxiety is always there, but when the leader rises, the angst goes through, because the spirit is in the in-between. When the anxiety is always there, but it moves from crippling and debilitating and paralyzing and disintermediating and disintegrating the group and the individuals, which leads to the infighting and the competition internal and the lack of the opposite of cooperation or cooperation and health, constructive competition. It becomes internal inversion and destruction when the angst falls down like a wave, because the spirit, the in-between, is cut off and blocked off. The leader rises and the angst, it's more like riding the wave, riding the surf, being above the water. The water is actually the rising tide, lifts all boats with the leader. When the leader stops paying attention, there is no boat. There is no ark. There is no parting. The angst is crippling. The angst falls down on top of the people, because the power comes from the alignment of the group. The power comes from people working together. The power comes from the vision of what to do and why. Its value comes from the execution. Its value comes from the execution, and ultimately no one knows or could know truly where, where to go and why, at like the absolute, this is the perfect answer. But someone is going to decide and say, you know what, I will have faith, I'll jump in, I'll do it. It's Frodo in the Fellowship of the Ring. Everyone is fighting with one another. It's unclear of what they're going to do with this responsibility. Some people want to take the Ring of Power and use it against the evil, the Sauron and his forces. Others want to destroy it. Gimli takes the axe and tries to destroy it as everyone is fighting with one another based on their differing views and perspectives and lived realities and cultural backgrounds and technologies that are influencing their histories and how they've become who they are. There's dwarfs and elves and humans, and they're all, and hobbits, and the hobbits are just watching and all like, why am I even in this room? I'm not really qualified to be here. And those that are qualified, the highest, the authorities, the representatives of all of their realms are there together in this unbelievable scene of concern and potential, and in like the safest place, the elves' sanctuary, having a discussion of what they're going to do in the face of the unknown, with this holding the evil, like the paradox of having the evil, the Ring of Power right there with them. It's with them, but it's simultaneously protecting them from itself, represented in the actual evil, Sauron. Because that ring is him, and he is that ring. It's like the externalization of his sin, his corruption, his absolute authority, omnipotence and omnipresence and omniscience through that ring that they have. That they touch it, he can see them for a moment. The dwarves try to destroy it. The elves are fighting with the dwarves, and the humans want to use it against, or at least the representative, I think it was Boromir, wanted to use it against like four. But Frodo said, I'll take it. I'll take it. I'll take the ring. I'll take it. And everyone's quiet. Frodo says, I'll take it. He's not even qualified to be in that room. At least he doesn't think he is. Now his kin participated many years before in helping the dwarves reclaim their home. And ultimately his kin was able to extract the ring, unbeknownst to anyone, to my knowledge at least, other than Gandalf, the third party observer of the economy there, the Jedi. I'll take it. Frodo brings the others back. The leader brings the others back. Every 100 men, 10 shouldn't be here. 80 are nothing but targets. 9 of them are real fighters. We're lucky to have them. But one is a warrior, and he will bring the others back. And in that story, Lord of the Rings, bringing the others back, or through evil, is the person at the lowest in authority, in power, in influence, being the most courageous in a moment with all the representatives of all the different cultures coming together and saying, I'll take it. I'll take the Ring of Power to the fires of Mordor. Frodo and the hobbits are paying attention. right? So if if leaders are responsible for bringing people back to what matters, what happens when the leader stops paying attention? Well, in that scene, someone low, relatively speaking, to authority, power, influence, all those in that room. If you haven't seen this scene at the Fellowship of the Ring, like, oh my God, I'm sorry. Hopefully this conversation inspires you to read the books, watch the movies. I'll take it. I'll bring the ring to the fires of Mordor. I will burden the suffering. I will take on the responsibility of everyone. I'll show you with what I do, and I'm accountable. I could fail. I'm accountable for all of you now. That's a lot of responsibility. That's a lot of pressure. If Frodo wasn't paying attention in that meeting, if he wasn't able to listen carefully to what everyone was saying, maybe he wouldn't have volunteered to take the ring to the fires of Mordor. So I wasn't hearing anyone else say that, I don't think. Maybe he wouldn't have volunteered. He was paying attention. He was listening. And I think he realized that it was worse. No one was... They weren't getting anywhere. They weren't getting anywhere. And he could see that no one was going to take the responsibility. And he, having already experienced some of the participants of evil in Sauron's plan, these wraiths following, chasing him, trying to get him, fighting them all the way to get to this, sanctuary. Finally, this is going to end, this thing that I didn't ask for. I didn't ask for this responsibility to get promoted to ring bearer. I didn't ask for that. It's been handed to me. I don't want this. I'm afraid of this. I like my simple life. I just want to do what I'm doing and be satisfied. And once I get there, everything's going to be okay. But from paying attention and listening, the humans, the dwarves, the elves, they're not getting anything done. They're not listening to each other. They're not collaborating. They're not cooperating. It seems to be that the ring is even influencing their inability to communicate, to commune. And that water is rising and rising and rising and rising. But not through. Not through. The energy isn't flowing through. It's rising above, and it's going to crash like a wave, like a tsunami, and destroy everyone. In the parting of the seas, the Egyptians are just using force, chasing the chosen people, and Moses he's integrated. He's a leader, has risen, and that spirit is moving the angst from external to be crushing and debilitating to through. Because the uncertainties of life are always there, and we as human beings use them. We use them to cooperate, to compete, to actualize our destiny, to bring it into being, to become who we are. That we want to be on top of the wave. A rising tide lifts all boats. We want to be the fleet on top of the wave, not the people on land suffering from the fall of what made us. Right? The water gave life. With life comes angst, anxiety, uncertainty. And it's our burden to use it, to hit the mark, to sacrifice what we want now for what we want most, to become competent and capable. We must be open to unlearn, to survive and thrive with one another. We must be, we're called to master ourselves, for ourselves to develop with other selves, other people, because it's not just us, it's our world, our group, our company, our family, our community, and so on and so forth. If the leader is responsible for bringing people back to what matters, and the leader stops paying attention, the leader stops paying attention. What happens when the leader stops paying attention? The institution becomes corrupt. Maybe they succumb to forces beyond themselves that are part of if the leader stops paying attention, they're crushed. They're crushed. And then the question is, what if they survive that? What do they become? The leader stops paying attention. That makes me think about, let's go back to the fellowship and that meeting. Frodo gets up and says, I'll take it. I'll take the ring to Mordor, and his friends who admire him, who model him, not just what he's said, but they've watched him work and labor and relate to the world through the uncertainties of life that have arisen, like the freaking wraiths chasing them for a while, trying to kill them and get this ring. They said they were not even in the meeting. They were eavesdropping because the people want to know. The people need to know. Transparency. Information needs to flow from leadership to the people because the people want to know. The people need to know. When the leader stops paying attention, the people aren't heard. They know, but they don't know. They know enough to be dangerous to themselves and the institution, and maybe help in a healthy way to the institution, because they're going to have to freaking save the institution when it breaks. Because when the leader stops paying attention, it breaks. So if we go to that scene, Frodo's friends are listening. They're in the bushes. It's like Samwise Gamgee and the other two. I'm sorry to Lord of the Rings fans. All of a sudden, Pippin, and I just lost the names. As I'm just like exploring here. They're all in the bushes, hiding. Right? The conspiracy theorists. They've been paying attention. No one even knows they're there. They're thinking. They're reflecting. They might have more helpful information for that management team. All the representatives, the Gimli and Legolas and Boromir and whoever, all the others in that meeting, because they've been watching them communicate, seeing their contradictions, what they think they know that they don't, what they know that may be useful but it's unheard. Anyway, they're in the bushes, and the people want to know. They see a leader, I'll take it, who doesn't have the authority, who doesn't have the power and the influence at that time, but how he behaves speaks to something inside of them. They don't want to go either. I don't think they want to go on this journey. They don't even know what I think one of them, even if I think about it, he just kind of followed his brother. He didn't even know, where are we going? Because he's following the brother that jumps out because he was paying attention. That's the power of modeling. That's the power of relationships. That's the power of trust and goodwill. All the things that get destroyed when the leader stops paying attention. When the leader stops paying attention, the modeling breaks down, the communication breaks down, the trust breaks down, the goodwill becomes resentment, fills the void, and the individual breaks down. Everyone is not, the internal operating system of the individual is not functioning. There is malignant energy. The organization misses the mark. There is no vision. There is no mission. We don't know where we're going. We forgot that a long time ago. We don't know our history. We don't even believe our history. That's somebody else's. We're going to reinvent our own. Well, that's going to be dangerous. How are we going to go about doing that? Who gets to write it? If it's been written by past generations, it's like a symptom of the collective consciousness. It's not something anyone created. But what if Sauron is creating? I'll say it's. It's like I don't even think Sauron is a person. Sauron was a person. Was a individual at one point. Was a powerful individual. I don't know enough about the lore to go into who he was at one time or what he was. I would guess that there was talent there and capacity and at one time a character that got ahead of itself and at some level wanted to rewrite history, wanted to reshape reality, wanted, in a sense, the concept of I will reign and only me forever, not just an organization, but temporally, like forever rule, never die. In that is a revision of history, is a going beyond time and space, beyond time changes space. There's that's like taking history and rewriting it. Yeah, it's the oblivion of history. So the truth, which has a relationship, where have we come from? Where we want to go? How are we navigating that? Reveals how we actually relate to one another in the organization in a meaningful way so we can all cope with life and do it in a way that's meaningful and check all the boxes while we go through it. And it's not so bad. It was worth it. The ride is over. It was worth it. It's not even, I want to do the ride again. No, I'm good. I did the ride. It was worth it. We're leaving the park. Everybody, we're going home. Not, I need another ride. That ride, I didn't like this. I didn't like that. What about that? I didn't get the full amount or advantage of the ride of life. Let me live it again. No. At the end, whenever that is, ride is over. We're going home. The leader, the leaders are responsible for bringing back what matters. When they stop paying attention, no one wants to go home. Everyone wants to keep on the ride. The ride. And everyone's missing the point, catching the falling knife, going backwards, staying here, going backwards, staying, and when that happens, maybe that's where, organizations become corrupt. They stop communicating. Trust breaks down. It's unclear of where they're going. People don't know why. That impacts who they are and how they function in their life. That is where their life is beyond just a corporation. Well, analogizing, life in general for the individual is beyond this life. And when there's a fracture between this life and home, the next, that's going to ultimately turn Frodo into Sauron. And you might be listening to this saying, yes, and that's what's supposed to happen. Frodo is supposed to, like, that's your interpretation of the Urumensch. Okay. I think there's a whole line of thought of people that are going to be arguing the opposite of that. And in the battle of life, the best ideas don't always win. They lose. So, in a business context, I guess, what kind of business do you want to run? Because when the leader stops paying attention, okay, here we go. Star Wars. Every Sith in the middle series, the Clone Wars and all that, in the middle series, every Sith that's being manipulated by Senator Palpatine, if I'm saying that right. Dooku's killed by Anakin. Sorry if you've never seen these movies. Dooku, yeah, he's killed. He has to get killed by his mentee. The mentee has to destroy the mentor. Why? Because in the destroying, he's coming closer to not the Force, but the dark side. He's coming closer to the dark side. It's a different interpretation, or and one of the interesting things about that movie, actually, it's not different in that movie where, what's Samuel L. Jackson's character's name? Hopefully that comes to me. The Jedi Council's corrupt. They're not listening to. They're not explaining things very well to Qui-Gon when he's found this raw talent, and he's not listening to them, so he doesn't respect them. Now, for some reason, why isn't he not respecting him? Either something's wrong with him, or something's wrong with them, or both. And I think it's both, because if something's wrong with him, they've got to say, hey, you can't be a Jedi anymore. If something's wrong with them, then, oh, shoot, then, what does he do? Well, I guess he goes and becomes, the master to a future Darth Vader. Well, I guess that's the point. When the leader stops paying attention, everything becomes corrupt. And the Jedi Council is not functioning in the way that it's supposed to be. And so now you have a scene where Palpatine has been engineering this mentor-mentee relationship for many years, patiently waiting for the Jedi Council to reveal its innate human contradictions of its faith, in a sense, so that the mentee could say, look at that believer, I'm not going to believe because look at their behavior, instead of focusing on their own journey of their own virtue, their own aiming towards who they in their conscience, or in their in almost like a common sense or a common cause. It's the love piece, right? That work through the fear that they're being manipulated over. They see the contradiction in that scene where Palpatine. Oh my God, the Star Wars fans. Beat me up. I would love to learn more about the lore of this, but this is my interpretation of the scene. So he's about to get killed by the Jedi. Anakin sees it, and instead of and the bad guy plays the victim, and so Anakin kills the good guy who's acting like a bad guy because everything's become the corrupt, and so now the dark forces, the dark side has, who was supposed to be the chosen one, fighting on the wrong side. So, if leaders are responsible for bringing the people to what matters, back, that's an important word. Heraclitus, the warrior, he will bring the others back. If leaders are responsible for bringing people back to what matters, what happens when the leader stops paying attention? When the leader stops paying attention, the Jedi Council loses the Force. It can't fully see. Yoda can't see. Palpatine's patience and planning and strategy and manipulations rise up and become more powerful. And the chosen one chooses the wrong side. When the leader stops paying attention, a hobbit has to say, I'll take it. The person at the lowest, that's least likely to succeed, is supposed to save everybody. When the leaders, and thank God that he did. He might not have, and every other universe, but that one he did. No, don't get me started on Avengers. When the leader stops paying attention, everybody has to go through hell and build a damn ship just to get above the waters. If the waters are the angst, if the leader stops paying attention, what's behind what's behind us? The tailwinds of life become the headwinds of life. It becomes harder to see, harder to choose, harder to decide what we'd all likely, most of us agree that is right for society, for family, community, our career, our organizations. When the leader stops paying attention, hell reigns.